Now, in the film, the military guy explains that this military facility is used for UFO tracking and possibly for UFO targeting. So this is 5 miles northwest of Sennybridge. You can find it on Google Earth, right? You see here there are trees being built which prevent you from seeing in there. This is, you can drive along this road. It is a military road, but the public are allowed along there, but you're not meant to stop your car. Now, there's a concreted area in this facility here, and there's 4 posts in the corner, which our military source claims as part of this weapon. He also says that there's a radar dish, I don't know where in the facility, that comes up from underneath the ground at night, and it rotates a bit like an airport radar, and that finds where the UFO is, and that there's some weapon system, non-ballistic, that can actually target the UFO and cause it to come down to the ground. Incredible claims. So the research that I've been involved with over the last few months is to try and verify these claims about this military facility. So I've attempted to find out what its true purpose is. So this is the first article I've been able to find, which is an article from before this facility was built. This is in the western fringes of Munid Ebend, it's called. So this is Brecon Radnor Express, Thursday, the 29th of November, 1990. So this is just 8 weeks after when the bodies were found. Secret plans to site huge radar masts on Ebend Hills. So this is talking about proposals to build that military facility that our source claims is a UFO-related facility. MP drops bombshell. MP for Brecon and Radnor, Richard Livesey, dropped a bombshell this week with the disclosure that the Ministry of Defence is secretly planning to site a massive naval communication system on the western fringes of Munid Ebend. It was on Tuesday that the Welsh Liberal Democrat leader revealed that up to 4 skyscraper radar masts, some 1,500 feet above ground level, are to be built on the Sennybridge military ranges as part of an intelligence network for the Trident nuclear submarine fleet. So only this one MP was giving out this information. So he had a source, probably in the MOD, that had told him that they were going to build this facility. But they told him that it was just a Trident communication system. So in other words, it's nothing to do with UFOs, it's a communication system for Trident. Now this MP is quite annoyed in this article, and he's saying, well, why are you building a Navy communication system up on the Brecon military ranges, Army ranges? Why don't you build it near the ocean or near the sea, on Navy land? And these masts are 1,500 feet high, 4 masts, that's what they're proposing to build in this article. So this is Richard Livesey here, who got this information somehow. Unfortunately, he died in 2010, so it would have been really good to speak to him, but we can't do that, unfortunately. So, so we've got a news article appeared on the 20th of December 1990 titled "Authenticity of Radar Masts Plan Challenged." So there's other MPs who are criticising Richard Livesey, saying, no, he's talking rubbish. They're not secretly planning to build anything on these Army ranges. One of his political opponents has challenged the claim made by Brecon and Radnor MP Richard Livesey that the Ministry of Defence is secretly planning to site a massive naval communications system on the western fringes of the Sennybridge Army ranges. This week, the prospective Conservative candidate Jonathan Evans stated that he had received an assurance from the Secretary of State for Wales, David Hunt, there is no such proposals on Munid Ebend, right? So the Secretary of State for Wales hasn't even been told, a member of the government. So this tells you that Richard Livesey had secret information. Okay, not about building a UFO tracking facility, but about building some Trident communication system. So Richard Livesey then starts making a bit of a nuisance of himself. On the 10th of January 1991, Minister fails to allay fears over masts. So he starts asking questions in Parliament whether the MOD or the Secretary of State for Defence has changed his plans to site naval radar radio masts on Her Majesty's land on the Sennybridge range in the Brecon and Radnor. So he's then given a reply, a requirement for new defence communication facilities is under consideration, but no decision on location have yet been taken. So they are now admitting that they might be building one somewhere. So then 2 months later, the MOD comes clean at last over Ebend Range masts. So this is the 14th of March 1991. The government admit, yes, we are going to build something at that facility. It's official. The Ministry of Defence is considering the Sennybridge military ranges as a site for 4 massive communication masts as part of a NATO intelligence network for the Trident submarine fleet. Isn't that interesting? we've got that word NATO, which is the title of my film, UFOs and NATO. Okay, so now let me just explain what these proposed masts look like. This is the skyline of London. The tallest building in London is the Shard. It's 1,000 feet high. So if you were to put one of these radar masts next to it, that's what it would look like. So you could see why the MPs and the local council are getting annoyed that they're going to put 4 of these masts in an area of outstanding natural beauty there on the Brecon Beacons. Now, let me just also explain the reason why they need to be this tall is because it's a VLF station, very low frequency. You need huge masts to transmit low frequency radio waves. The reason why they need to be so low frequency is so that they can penetrate through the ocean to speak to a submarine, right? This is a one-way communication system. The submarine can't send any information back, right? But there are several of these VLF transmission stations around the world, and they all have these extremely high masts. So here's an example one in Western Australia. These masts are 1,270 feet high. This station runs at 19.8 kilohertz. They have to be this size for very low frequency because normal radio waves won't travel through the ocean. It's got to be low frequency. This is a photograph of that facility during the day. We can see the masts. You can see this one is built next to the ocean, and nearly all of them are built next to the ocean. This is a diagram of one. Here's one in the UK. This one has 13 masts, 745 feet. It's in Cumbria. This runs at 19.6 kilohertz. As you can see, built near the sea. This is one in Germany, 1,157 feet high masts. You'll understand why I'm telling you this in a second. Now, if you go on the website smeter.net, you will find many of the world's VLF stations listed. Now, I've been through this entire list and Googled all of them and trying to get photographs of each one. Every single one of them, 1,000-foot masts, right? You can't communicate with a submarine unless you've got huge transmission masts. So, on the 28th of March 1991, this article is just all about how the council are going to oppose these plans, and they're making it awkward. And a very interesting article pops up 6 months later. Sensitive material missing after raid on MP's office. So this is Richard Livesey, the guy who somehow had information on this facility before he should have. Questions were being raised this week whether a weekend burglary at the constituency offices in Brecon of Liberal Democrat MP Richard Livesey was politically motivated. Describing the break-in as sinister, Mr. Livesey revealed this week that £6,000 worth of computer equipment stolen in the raid contained sensitive material. He believed the intruders, who did a very professional job in gaining access to the premises, considered to be very secure, were carrying out a special mission. The thieves were not a bunch of amateurs, but knew what they were looking for, said Brecon and Radnor, Member of Parliament. So was someone, perhaps connected to the MOD, breaking into his office to find out how the hell, who is his source, where we have this leak from, and possibly, does he know more? Does he know more about the purpose of this facility? Okay, and here it is. So as I said, these 4 posts are on the corner of this concreted area. Now I'm just going to show you some Ordnance Survey maps which show that the posts or the masts were put up in the 1990s. Here's a photograph that I took of them. This is present day. Right, this is a present day Ordnance Survey map, and you can see these are the trees that you saw in the other image. That's the concreted area where the posts are, or the masts. Here's a more detailed Ordnance Survey, and the 4 masts are marked by these 4 dots. As I say, that's present day. We go back to 1989 Ordnance Survey. You see they've actually got the facility prepared, but there's no detail of the masts. 1996, still no detail of the masts. If we go to 1998, we see that the concreted area is there, but no masts. 1999, we have masts. So the first appearance of the masts on Ordnance Survey is in 1999. Now that doesn't mean they were put up in 1999. It means they were put up at least in 1999. So this facility was constructed with the masts in the 1990s. So I think the reason why I'm presenting this is to show you that they are talking about the same facility. And that facility is on the western fringes of the Munard-Eppant Range. So they are talking about the facility. And this is a photograph that I've taken. You don't hang around too long when you're there. So here's another image. So you can see that the masts are actually connected with wires. This is a CCTV system. Here's an aerial view from Google Earth. So you can see the four masts cast in shadows here. Here's another photograph that I've taken. Again, you can see wires connecting two of the, well, I'll not call them aerials, two of the masts. Now here's a close-up of the bases, which are extremely robust if these are just transmitters. Now, you'll notice on this Google Earth image, there's a scale here, 10 meters. So I was able to work out the distance between the masts. And now that I know the distance between the masts, using this photograph, I've worked out the height of the masts, okay? So I've now produced an isometric engineering drawing of one of these masts. Here it is. They're 44 feet high. There's no way that this is a transmitter for a Trident communication system. I cannot speak to a submarine, right? And I'm not convinced that these are even transmitters. They're some sort of mast, but I'm not convinced it is an aerial. But let's say it was an aerial used in what's called quarter wavelength mode, which is a common mode. You calculate the frequency at around about 5.5 megahertz, which is the low end of the HF band. There's no way that that signal could penetrate through the ocean to a submarine. Now, a friend of mine is on a radio comms forum on the internet, and I gave him some of this information with photographs of the masts, and he posted it on a radio buffs forum just to get their opinions on what this might be. The first guy said, oh, they're lightning conductors. Then another guy said, no, they're radio beacons. Someone else chips in, they're long-range artillery comms antennas for field army training. Then another guy says they're multi-directional aircraft tracking. No, another guy says it's HERTAS, which jam aircraft locating finding equipment. Apparently someone said it's known by some as the telephone exchange. Then another guy pops up and he says, no, you're all wrong. It's a NATO Trident communication submarine system. And he then posts a link to one of Richard Livesey's parliamentary questions with the MOD's answer, confirming that it is a Trident communication system. So everyone on the radio forum then says, oh, well, that's it. And then they start talking about something else. We've solved that one. It's just for Trident. And they all agreed, right? But I can tell you that it can't be. It can't be. In my opinion, the government have lied about what they're going to build. Now, just forget the whole subject of UFOs for a second. That in itself is worthy of note. That the government have told everyone that they're going to build 1,500 feet high transmitters for their nuclear Trident program, and what they've built is this. I don't know what it is, right? 44 feet high. It's not, that cannot communicate with Trident, right? So, you know, it's built on army land on top of a hill. It's not near the ocean like most of these VLF transmission stations are. So it is something completely different in my opinion. And I do think this proves that the government have lied. And here's how the four are laid out. So what could it be? Now, you saw that there was wires connecting some of them, and it is possible to have what's called a wire antenna. So you will have two posts. Sometimes you attach it to a building, and the wire itself is the antenna. So in this case, the wire would be about 40 meters long. So even if that was used in quarter wavelength mode, you're talking 1.87 megahertz. It is slightly lower frequency, but not much. Some people have said, oh, well, they're used as 12th or 16th wavelength, right? No matter which way you look at it, it's not a Trident communication system. It's nowhere near big enough. So it's something else, in my opinion. So what could it be? I've had a few thoughts on it. One suggestion is that it might be a phased array. If you have a single transmitter and you apply frequency to it, the energy will dissipate outwards like this. If you have 2, 3, 4, or multiple transmitters and you apply the same frequency, would phase shift them so they're slightly out of sync. If you do it right, you can create a beam. So the energy doesn't dissipate in all directions, and you can focus that beam. You can point it at an area in the sky and focus it. So this is what HARP is. It's a phased array. So is this a phased array? I don't know. Like I say, I'm not even convinced that these are radio transmitters. They look far too robust to just be normal antennas. So we see that there's wires attached to them. Is it the case that those wires are used to suspend something which we don't see? Something which is not there, which perhaps they bring out at night? I don't know. So is it a directed energy weapon? Is this what's used to target UFOs, to interfere with their propulsion system, to bring them down to the ground, which is what our military source said. Now, another theory is maybe they are what's called waveguides. So a waveguide is like a metal tube that you fire microwaves down. So if they were waveguides, then you're talking much higher frequencies, and you'd have some sort of magnetron maybe under the ground. I'm just hypothesizing here. I do not know what this facility is, but I'm putting out the information so the technical people can watch this and then tell me what this is. I'm not going to jump in with both feet and say, look, I told you this is what they're shooting UFOs down with, because I don't know that it is. But this is what our military source said, and it's not a Trident communication system. Okay, as I've said, these might not be aerials, there could be supports for something else. And they have been running GPS jamming exercises up there. So this, between the 15th and 26th of August, what they've done, they installed some equipment which is just 2.3 miles from this facility. And what this does is it stops GPS systems from working, like if you've got a drone or whatever. But I've been told that the reason why they do this is when the troops are on exercises and they're doing map reading or whatever, some of them will cheat. They'll carry a GPS thing around with them so they can cheat. So the military jam GPS. So there's possibly just a straightforward explanation why they've got jamming systems up there. So if anyone's got any information, please do forward it to me, and I'll be very interested to hear what you've got to say. Okay, now, just to summarize and finish tonight's talk, some of this information is very confusing because you say, well, it looks like they faked certain of the moon landings. But Richard, in one of your previous talks, you were talking about the TR-3B, which is this incredible vehicle that can go really, really fast and go to other planets. So how does that match with the moon landings being faked? And also the Mars rover missions being faked? Because in a previous Rich Planet show, we've suggested that some of the lunar and Mars orbiters may have filmed ruins on the surface. So Cydonia on Mars. We've also got the testimony of Carl Wolf, who said that there was ruins or buildings on the far side of the moon. So how does it all hang together? And we've also got the UFO mystery, which is still very much a mystery. Now, in order to try and attempt to explain all of this evidence, I'm going to throw in another theory, which is called the constraints of Gaia. Anyone heard of this? Constraints of Gaia theory states that all life on Earth is in some way connected to the Earth. We're all part of the Earth, either electromagnetically or through some other means. And that if you leave the Earth, after you get past a certain distance, you will cease to be. You cannot go further than a certain distance. You will lose your marbles, or your heart will stop, or what have you. That there's some sort of constraint that is some sort of physical or electromagnetic constraint within all life on the Earth. We're part of the planet. That's the theory of the constraints of Gaia. The theory goes that NASA discovered this in their space missions as they got further away from the Earth, and they've been working on how to get around it. So they need to build a simulator to simulate the Earth, to take with them perhaps. So I'm going to summarize, and I'm going to give you a hypothesis. This is just a hypothesis, and it might completely change next year if I get new evidence. But here's my stab at it. I've updated the hypothesis since I've given this lecture, so I'll give you the up-to-date one. Advanced propulsion craft have been developed by man in secret and are being used on and around the Earth in secret up to a certain orbital height, i.e. within low Earth orbit. Space-based weapons, such as observed on 9/11, have also been developed. All this technology is classified. They are trying to solve the constraints of Gaia issue, which is another classified project. Once resolved, this will enable manned travel beyond low Earth orbit to other planets in craft already designed or built, not based on rockets. Photographs from unmanned Moon and Mars orbiters of ruins have shown other civilizations have been on the Moon and Mars before us, but this is classified. Advanced ancient knowledge of all kinds of technology has been discovered in many archaeological finds on the Earth of previously advanced civilizations. Where possible, this has been classified. To help conceal all these classified projects, a semi-fake space program continues, which includes the commercial space program.
The UFO phenomenon has provided some astonishing new knowledge, and this knowledge is classified. The knowledge includes information about human origins, energy and propulsion. It includes information on the purpose of mutilations and abductions. Some UFOs appear to involve consciousness and as yet undefined physics. NATO have been actively targeting and acquiring UFO technology without public knowledge.
Here's Tom with the weather. Okay, that's it, folks. But do remember, believe none of what you hear, including from me, and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.